Okay. So when these honors start coming down the pipeline, there had to be detractors, because one thing that people are going to always argue about is sports and religion,
right,
and politics. I mean, people are always going to argue about who's the best, who's the greatest, in this field or that field or whatever. And when you started getting people saying, well, now I think this person, that person, this person, how did you hold up to that scrutiny?
Well, the reality is, I think that you just have to be the best you can be. I look at it now. People ask me, who's your favorite athlete? I'm like, I like the brilliance of athletics. So I'll see different people in different sports and that inspired. Or if I watch a game, I say, wow, what a great play. I didn't get into that because it really is difficult to do that. I know that I was compared to Jesse Owens because Jesse and I did the same events. Well,
and that was early on. I think you was 17.
Yeah, I was
people
very
started
young.
saying that you was like the next Jesse Owens.
Yep, and so my thing is that I said, Jesse inspired me. It couldn't have happened without him. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, when Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals, he came back from Germany. They had a ticker tape parade. They had a big party, and guess what? The elevator was whites only. So he had to go up the service elevator. Then later on, he was banned from track and field because he wanted to try to earn a living, and they were using him. Excuse me. So then he had to go out and do what he did for his family. Well, later in life, I was able to meet him when I was a teenager, and
you met Jesse Owens?
Oh yeah,
man?
I met when I was 13. I met Jesse Owens, absolutely, and it was inspiring because I heard his story.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate because my parents went to Tuskegee and they moved to Montgomery. And when they were in Montgomery, my mother met Rosa Parks. Okay, and they became friends. And my mother was also an Olympic caliber athlete. She made the 1952 Olympic team. And in the process, she went to the Pan Am Games down in Argentina. She met Eva Perón, shook her hand.
Wow.
So Evita was, my mother met Evita back in the 50s. And then because
so you've been indoctrinated into this greatness.
Yeah. And, my mother, because of Rosa Parks as a friend, they met Dr. King, and my parents were teachers because they got their degree. We had a car, so when the bus strike happened, they were part of that process, and we were involved in the civil rights movement, before my birth.
Right.
And then we moved to Birmingham at the same, with Dr. King, and we were in the church. And then in the early 60s, we moved to New Jersey. But those are the stories I heard coming up about my grandparents were independent in their community, how the civil rights movement was important. When my parents moved to New Jersey, it was a segregated town that had just been desegregated. The Equal Opportunity Housing Act was a part of the lawsuit from my hometown, Willingboro, New Jersey. So they came in as teachers, and they started a track club. They were coaches, and they didn't back down because they'd been through something bigger than just this town in New Jersey. So that's what I saw. I saw people that really took charge of a town, and not only that, with the Air Force Base close. We had military people, we had educated people. Our town, I saw black people getting things done and having the clout to do it. That's where I was raised. And so even though people tried not to put them on an equal foot, they were, because they had all the credentials. So I always believed, and that's how I was raised. And then when I started to have this talent, I said I had to speak out and do the same thing. The interesting thing about it is that what I talked about, what I did, all the things I did 30 years ago, is absolutely normal now. And but someone had to break those molds, and whether it's me or in baseball, it was Curt Flood, all this free agency. A lot of these young athletes don't even know who Curt Flood is.
Right.
There would be
They're
no
benefiting
no clue
from his sacrifices.
Yeah, exactly. And so someone has to always take it for the team. And when you look at different times, you have to look at the flashpoints in history. Colin Kaepernick was benched last year. This year he was on the cover of Time magazine,
right,
because he put himself out there, and he made himself a part of a flashpoint in history. So when he's retired, I don't know how well his career is going to go from the future, but he will be remembered because he took a stand for something he believed in. And that's the change agent we want to have. Others may want to tiptoe around it because I've got a commercial shoot or I've got this or that, but the bottom line, your relevance comes from what you stand in.
I'm glad you brought up Cap, because I'm a huge proponent of Colin Kaepernick. Now, when when you were competing, did you ever have any type of protest to the flag or whatever? How did you feel? Did you even know about that third verse in the flag? In the national anthem?
Yeah, it's a different. It was a different time. We were fighting for different things.
Okay.
My struggle was for equality because I'm from Willingboro, New Jersey, which is about 10 miles from Trenton,
okay,
and about 5 miles from Camden. And Camden in the 70s was considered like, oh my God, it's the poorest place in the world, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And people used to always, I'd say I'm from New Jersey. We're from Camden. It's like, no, I'm from Willingboro. There was the automatic, and so I got the dog.
So is that middle income, Willingboro?
Just a middle income town, and
right.
It was just middle class town, and working class. Like I said, both parents were public school teachers. So it was the dog whistle all the time. And so I grew up with that and not understanding it young. My parents never said, oh, that's a dog whistle, understand that. But what they did is they said, you have to do what you think is right. So the anthem part wasn't there, but we fought for other issues. I fought for equality. In amateurism, the whole goal is to control the money and have people play for you.
Right.
And like I said, it's just a couple of steps above slavery because it's like I make all the money and you just play for me. So that was where my struggle was, equal rights in sports and amateurism. Back in the 80s, the Olympic Committee didn't give money to athletes. I used to get criticized for not coming to press conferences or things if I was somewhere else or staying in the village. Oh, he's terrible. But I took a stand, and I was the first athlete to be paid by the Olympic Committee for an appearance back in the late 80s, and now it's normal. But you know what? I took a lot of heat for that stuff.
Right.
So I think that you actually do what's important to you at that time. We weren't even at that point, and I think the great thing about where CAP is now and what's going on now is the biggest change in sports to me is video, because as an athlete, I wish I had high-speed video, internet, everything else in my time, because I think I would have been a better athlete. Well, guess what? Those same videos and cameras and phones are allowing us to see behind the scenes of things that we could not see, that we knew about, we lived in our lives, but we couldn't say anything because no one had proof.
Right. How many record holds do you have?
I set 13 world records, and I don't know how many I have left now. Some of them are gone.
Yeah.
I have the indoor world record in long jump, which I've held.
That long jump, that's going to be hard.
Yeah, it's going to be. I'm trying to coach someone to do it, but I've held it since 1981.
That would be cool as hell if actually, if the person who broke that record was coached by you.
Absolutely.
That would be dope.
No one else is trying to do it, so why don't I do it? I'm not a hater. Records are borrowed, medals are owned.
Okay, I like that. I like that. So, which sport? I mean, well, not which sport, but which actual, contest did you appreciate the most? Was it long jump or sprint?
Oh, I was a long jumper. Yeah. So when I
because you started off as a long jumper and then you started sprinting. What made you get into sprint?
That's a great question. Out of high school, I was a state champion in both, but I was recruited as a long jumper, and I really didn't have an intention of being a sprinter. That was it. Well, when I started having success, I realized that the times were different. And just to put it in context, back in the late 70s, still up through the 80s, there were 3 amazing titles. Of course, the golf, they had all the majors for golf, and they had the majors for tennis. But if you were the world's fastest human, the world's greatest athlete, which is the decathlon, or the heavyweight champion, those were clear-cut global titles. Mm-hmm. And when I started to have success in the sprints, I realized, so wait a minute, that world's fastest human title is money. That's business.
Right.
So if I'm the fastest man in the world, it's a simple thing. So I really worked hard to do that, but I didn't stop the long jump because Bob Beeman's record was there. So now all of a sudden, I can have to be the world's fastest human and then break what could be one of the greatest athletic achievements in sports history. So I was like, if I could do both of those, that's my ticket to the millionaire I wanted to be, this teenage kid. And that's really why I got into it. And then I had a great coach, Tom Tellez, who knew how to manage those two. Then when I had success in both, they started talking about Jesse Owens. And I'd met Jesse Owens and admired him. And I said, well, wait a minute, why don't I go for Jesse Owens' record of 4? So it just kind of evolved.
Yeah, when you left school, what year did you leave high school?
1979, I graduated.
Okay, 79. But you were drafted by the Chicago Bulls, even though you never played basketball in high school or college.
Right.
You were drafted by. This tripped me out when I found out this. You were also drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, even though you never played football.
Right, exactly.
And I can't remember which guy said this, but somebody said that one of the scouts said that they drafted you because this was the Cowboys. One of the Cowboys guys said they drafted you because you were the best athlete in the world. Man, I mean,
yeah, it was.
Those are some hell of honors, man. That's a hell of an honor.
Yeah, it's. I tell you, you can't write my story. That's why I just live it every day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way. If you sit back and wrote my story, a little kid that was small, from Willingboro, New Jersey, was a late bloomer, was shorter than my younger sister in 11th grade, and was just very average in my community. And you'd say you've written my story. No one would believe it. And so that was an amazing time because that was right around '84, and our sport was exploding. And the funny thing is that I'm an Eagles fan. I grew up a Philadelphia Eagles fan.
Right.
So of all the teams that called me, it was the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
And, it was funny. We did talk to Tex Schramm about it, and he said,
Did you think about it, though? Did you think about playing?
Well, you know what? At the time, it's really funny how times have changed. Because track, what I was doing was exploding. That, for like about 3 or 4 years, I was making more than football players.
Right.
Because of the way, from endorsements and appearances and around the world. So it wasn't a good business decision.
Okay.
And I had not played, so now I'm like, wait a minute. I'm making more than them right now. I have these 2 lanes that keep people from touching me.
Right, right.
So what am I going over there for? Let me stay here and do this.
Right.
And that was really, at the time, I don't know if I could have played, but I know that it was the best business decision at the time.
Right. And so now, how do you feel about that money being made today, man, versus when you were out there getting your money?
You know what? In football and basketball, it's amazing. I like the fact that these young athletes can earn just these massive livings and have these great lives and do it. What I want them to do is think, the people around them to think about their future more, because what concerns me, and it's not as much in track because they don't make anywhere near as much. What concerns me is the high rate of bankruptcy and how quickly they lose that money. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the big challenge that I'd like to I talk to young people all the time, because when I was 17, I made the Pan American Games team, and there were no other guys younger than 20. So I'm just a 17-year-old kid. I turned 18 there, and I'm like with my eyes wide open. I was 5th in the world,
right?
And I just wasn't ready. I went to college and I enjoyed it 2 years, and then I left college after 2 years, #1 in the world in 2 events. Well, looking back on that now, I wish someone had stopped that. I wish I'd made those 4 years. I wish I'd gone through and finished at that time and finished my eligibility and spent that time developing and growing. Because especially in our sport, we're not getting the physical beating and everything else. That money's still going to be there, but the experience that you get and the maturity that you get to make better decisions as you get older is going to help you.
Right. So do you think that the athletes today, in my opinion, I look at it like you would be an advocate for college athletes getting paid.
Yeah, here's why. As a college coach, I think that college athletes should get money.
Right.
And I definitely do. The challenge is, how do you do it? Because the wealthier schools can pay more, so you end up bankrupting the smaller schools where 90% of the kids go. So then you have to legislate how you do it. That's the challenge. I think, and that right now, even with the way the Power 5 and Group of 5 conferences. I'm at Houston. We're a Group of 5 school, probably the best Group of 5 school in football, definitely in track. We were top 10 in the country, and golf and baseball. We're right up there. But and we treat our program exactly like a Power 5 school. We give them everything. We do everything. We're competitive. But there are a lot of schools that can't afford it. So what do? And then even in the Power 5, there are schools that can't afford it. And they're being bankrupted because they have to keep up at that level. So I think the reality is that there's going to be a big sea change in what goes on. And the way I see it is we should change more about the long-term health of the athletes, because just paying them to me is still a short-term issue. You know, I've been an advocate for years of getting a degree in your sport. Now it's like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Why should I have to get a kinesiology degree? Get a degree in football if you're a football player. Now, what does that mean? You're going to have to learn of health. You're going to have to learn about taking care of your body. You're going to have to learn about some kinesiology stuff. You know, and you're going to have to take finance classes, marketing classes, business classes, and they all relate to what you're doing. If you play tennis, well, now all of a sudden maybe international business, maybe language, because you're going to travel more.
What about communications?
And
Do you have a communications degree?
No, I didn't. See, I went
so
there.
It's all natural for you.
Yeah, I went. No. I went there in technology, but what
Okay.
I did, my first semester, I took 2 speech classes. Next, I took a speech class constantly because I educated myself how to communicate. Because I realized young that if I can't communicate, then people are not going to want to pay me. You know?
Right.
So my first semester freshman year, I was on it, and communication should be a part of every single athlete's curriculum. See,
Right.
these are the things that I think it'll make it more interesting, because if a kid comes in saying, I want to be a football player, well, then that's fine. Well, in the football degree, and they said, well, what could you do with that degree? Well, you have this variety of experiences in your degree plan. Well, guess what? How many people use their degree and get the job in that anyway? So you
Right.
end up going somewhere else. So a lot of times these athletes will have a broader degree plan than a lot of other education that they do in the school, and they still get their education, but they're motivated because they feel like it's enhancing what they really want to do.
Right. Man, tell me about this new business you got. You got an app that
Yeah.
you out there developing, and you're gonna be training athletes, right?
Right. Well,
primarily track and field, right?
well, no. Actually, what it is called the Perfect Method, and right now
Okay.
we'll be launching in first quarter 2017. And what I've noticed as a college coach, is that the fundamentals and things that we're doing with kids are straying off. We're trying to do different things. I always say the greatest technical runner ever were cavemen, because you know what? The person that now is running down the track, that caveman was trying to run from a mastodon. They didn't run all pretty. They put their feet down and ran. You know, it's like Popo come around the corner. You don't go, well, let me lift my knees and run. You put your feet down and hit it. You know,
Right.
so I want to get back to the basics, because what's happened is that just because we have new technology, we think we have to do new things. Well, there's a basic structure, a perfect way to run correctly. So when someone asked me to do a video one time, like they do the training video, I said, that is so old time. So it popped in my mind, why don't I do something where I can go directly to people? So we've developed the Perfect Method, where everything's in the cloud, it's real-time training, and you can get information, so it's always available to your phone, your tablet, your computer. So it's not just going to a clinic, learning and going away. You actually have it right there with you all the time. And then it's a subscription-based program, so that you're constantly being updated. There'll be podcasts like this, there'll be webinars, whenever something new or some new ideas come up. And it's not just training for track and field, but it's actually movement. But then it goes psychological, diet, nutrition. So we'll have 3 different programs where you could specialize in certain areas or learn about all of them. But it's always in real time. So any new thing, so as long as you're subscribed, you can get all the new information.
And is it free to subscribe? Or?
It's not free, but
Okay.
it's a very small subscription. And another thing too, we will then be certifying coaches or doctors or people in specific areas, so that then they could be a Perfect Method certified coach or something, whether it's high school or college or anything. And the great thing about it is that when in track and field, they've been cutting budgets in a lot of these sports so much that we don't have physical education in schools. So
Right.
many schools don't
That's
have
a
PE
travesty,
teachers.
man.
Oh, it's ridiculous. So
Yeah.
we don't have the PE teachers had some biomechanics and some movement and structure. They had that experience.
Right.
Where now maybe it's a math teacher who really has a passion, but they don't really know. Well,
Right.
who's there to teach them? So
Right.
now they could become a member, learn this, and say, if they tell a math teacher, I want you to coach the long jump. Well, guess what? They can have me coach them in real time through the cloud all the time specifically about the long jump, step by step. Just like whether it's online ordering an album, you don't have to order the album anymore. You can order a song, so you
right.
can just sing one piece of the long jump, learn that, then that piece, and then guess what? It's there. And then with the podcasts and webinars and information, you have questions, you can present those. But with the subscription, you're always in the loop, and then say, I love this. I want to become a real coach. Well, guess what? We can certify you, and now that certification, you can use that to get a job.
Now, will it be available in multiple languages?
Oh yes, global, because my brand is global. It's over 3 billion people worldwide. So we're going to start in English, obviously, and then we'll probably go to Spanish, and then go to Asia, Europe. So we're going to be all over the world. It's going to take years, obviously, just like any new to get all the languages. But we're really excited about the fact that we're talking with some organizations here and partnering up. I can't mention it now, but we've already had an agreement. So it'll be something that can apply to every sport, because the thing is that, of course, I'm coaching track and field, teaching track and field, but the perfect method idea can be any sport. And not only that, the expertise can come from anyone, where we plan to ultimately plug every sport in, so it could be a different athlete. Like you mentioned, it's Jim Brown. What if Jim Brown's coaching football? Well, we have the same process, the same membership. So ultimately, it could be for millions of people in all sports.
Man, that's a hell of a concept, man. Let's take a break and continue this discussion.